After this film begins in Spain, specifically in a place called Andalusia. There's a man named Romano who's like the big boss of the area. He's part of something called the mafia, which means he's in charge of a group of people who do illegal things. Even though Romano is really strong and important, he likes to look at tarot cards to guess what might happen in his life. One day, when Romano went to see a tarot card reader, she said something scary. She told him that someone who sees him as a dad would cause big problems for him. Soon after, Romano meeting with his best friend, Toro. At that time, Romano asks Toro to do something bad to another restaurant, but Toro surprises Romano. He says he wants to quit being in the gang after that job. When Romano heard this, he looked really surprised because he never expected Toro to quit being a gangster. But before Romano could ask why, Toro gave him a big hug and a kiss, like he was saying goodbye to his own dad, and then he hurried off. After that, Toro picked up his two friends, Antonio and Lopez, who were actually his brothers. While they were in the car, Antonio and Lopez were shocked to hear that Toro wanted to quit being a gangster. Even though they felt sad because Toro was really good at fighting, they still supported his decision completely because he's the brother. When they got to the restaurant owned by Romano's rival, Toro and the others wrecked the place, smashing things and breaking windows, just like Romano had told them to. But then they heard police sirens getting closer. Toro got really scared and told his brothers to run away, but Lopez went somewhere else instead. So Toro and Antonio ran off without waiting for Lopez because they were running out of time. At that time, Toro and Antonio were in a rush to escape in their car as several police cars started chasing them. It was a tense race through the streets that night. Toro did his best to avoid being seen by the police. He parked their car among other cars and told Antonio to duck down to stay hidden. After a while, Toro thought they had shaken off the police and decided to keep going. But suddenly, they heard a gunshot. It hit Antonio and he died right there. Toro was shocked and devastated. He lost focus while driving and they ended up crashing. Toro was filled with sadness and anger at losing Antonio. Soon, the police arrived to arrest him. Toro fought back, but it was no use. They managed to capture him. As they were putting handcuffs on him, Toro saw Lopez in the distance. Lopez didn't do anything to help him. It seemed like he had deliberately let Toro get caught by the police. It's been 5 years since that terrible event, and Romano has only gotten stronger as a mafia boss in the city. Meanwhile, Lopez is still around and working for Romano. He lives with his daughter, Diana. On the other hand, Toro is now working as a taxi driver as part of a special program for prisoners. This means he can do things outside of prison as long as he follows the rules. But every night at 10, he has to go back to prison. Toro's life is looking up though. He has a nice job and a girlfriend named Estrella, who is a teacher. One day, Toro visited Estrella at her school to tell her that he's going to be completely free in 2 months because he got a letter saying his punishment is almost over. Estrella was thrilled to hear the news. Finally, they'll be able to be together without any restrictions. After spending 5 years in prison, Toro is looking forward to a peaceful life with Estrella. He's changed for the better and wants to marry her and live happily ever after. In another part of the city, Romano got some bad news from one of his guys. It turns out that Lopez had been stealing money from their business. Romano was furious when he found out. So that very night, he went to one of his trusted guys named Gines and told him to make Lopez return all the money he'd been taking from Romano secretly. The next day, Gines and 2 others went to Lopez's house to talk to him about it. But Lopez lied and tried to run away. Gines got angry and hurt Lopez's hand to teach him a lesson. Then he gave Lopez 3 hours to give back all the money he took, threatening to kill him if he didn't. To make sure Lopez didn't run off, Gines took Lopez's daughter, Diana, with them. Feeling trapped, Lopez went to Toro for help, but Toro was still upset with Lopez because he abandoned him years ago. However, Lopez begged Toro for help because he knew Romano trusted Toro, and he hoped Toro could talk to Romano and fix things. At first, Toro didn't want to help because he wanted nothing to do with Romano anymore, but Lopez kept begging him, saying Romano had taken Toro's niece, Diana, as a hostage. Toro was shocked and worried because he loved Diana a lot and couldn't let her be in danger. But Toro also thought about his own freedom. If he got involved with the gangsters again, he'd get into more trouble. Still, he decided to help Lopez save Diana. Soon after, they hurried to Romano's place to talk things out. There, Toro begged Romano to let Lopez and Diana go, but Romano said Toro had to choose between them. Since Romano wouldn't budge, Toro offered to rejoin the gang if Romano would free his family. But Romano said no, so Toro fought Romano's men and freed Diana. They escaped, but Romano ordered his men to chase them. As Toro drove his car fast to get away from Romano's men, Diana, who was in the back seat, cleverly opened the car door and knocked out one of Romano's guys who was chasing them. Luckily, they managed to escape and decided to stop at an old warehouse. There, Lopez asked Toro to take him and Diana to his sister-in-law's house. He also suggested they switch cars to throw off anyone following them. Meanwhile, Romano, being the mafia boss, used his power to make everyone in the city help find Toro's car by offering a big reward. Soon after, Toro and Lopez went to see Lopez's old friend, Nundi. When they got there, Lopez asked Nundi for his car, because Nundi owed him money. At that time, Toro and Lopez planned to leave right away, but Nundi wanted them to stay and have a drink with him because he had some good wine. Then, while Lopez was grabbing a drink from the fridge, he stumbled upon a note on the table and showed it to Nundi. Toro got really angry when he saw it and attacked Nundi until he confessed that he had called Romano about half an hour ago. Lopez felt betrayed and disappointed, but there wasn't much he could do. Shortly after, they decided to leave before Romano's men showed up. Soon after, Ginez and his gang arrived at Nundi's place and demanded to know where Lopez and Toro had gone. But Nundi refused to help because he felt guilty for betraying Lopez. So Ginez ordered his men to kill Nundi. Meanwhile, Toro and Lopez reached Tita's house, who is Lopez's sister-in-law. Interestingly, Tita is also Romano's regular tarot card reader and the wife of Antonio, who is Lopez and Toro's older brother. There, Tita also gave Diana a photo of her mother because Diana had never met her before. Lopez had promised to reunite Diana with her mother, but he hadn't kept his promise. Tita also gave Toro the money Antonio had saved while working for Romano. She didn't want money from the person who had killed her husband. Toro was shocked to hear this, especially when Tita revealed that Romano had ordered a corrupt police officer to kill him. Shortly after, Tita explained that Romano didn't want to kill Antonio but Toro because he believed in the tarot card predictions he got that night. This made Toro angry, and he wanted to get revenge on Romano. But when he tried to leave, Lopez stopped him. Lopez knew Romano wanted to kill Toro, but didn't have the strength to fight him. At that time, Lopez knew that Romano wanted to kill Toro, but he also knew he couldn't fight against Romano, who was very powerful in the city. Seeing Toro's determination for revenge, Lopez suggested they take all of Romano's hidden money. While Toro was in prison, Lopez worked for Romano to find out where the treasure was stored. When Toro heard this plan, he agreed to go along with it. The next day, they went to Romano's house. Toro sneaked into Romano's room while Lopez and Diana waited in the car. Toro found Romano safe but had to hide when he heard Romano coming. While hiding, Toro was shocked to see Isabella, who was Ginez's girlfriend, having an affair with Romano. When Romano left the room, Toro stole all the money from the safe and ran away. Romano found out his money was gone, but Toro, Lopez, and Diana were relaxing on the beach after successfully stealing it. Lopez told Toro he planned to use the money to start a new life in Africa with Diana. After hearing Lopez's plan, Toro smiled. He felt relieved knowing they had saved Diana and kept her safe. That evening, Romano decided to visit Tita's house. He left Ginez in the car and went inside to question Tita about Lopez and Toro. Romano asked Tita where Lopez and Toro were, but Tita acted like she didn't know. Afraid Romano would kill her, Tita pretended to go get wine, but Romano didn't let her escape. He killed her right there. Meanwhile, Toro and Diana were resting in the hotel restaurant. Soon after, Lopez joined them and said he couldn't get tickets for them. He had tried to buy tickets to Africa, but the ticket counter was closed. Seeing Diana sleeping peacefully in Toro's arms, Lopez gave Toro a jacket to cover her and went to buy snacks. Later, Toro found an envelope with 2 tickets inside, which Lopez had bought earlier. There, Toro finally realized that Lopez had planned to take Diana all along and had used Toro to steal Romano's money. Toro felt deeply betrayed and angry because Lopez had once again used him for his own gain. Soon after, he stormed to Estrella's apartment to calm down, but when he turned on the light, he found Estrella lying on her bed, covered in blood. Estrella was dying. Upon knowing that, Toro rushed her to the hospital to save her life. He learned that Romano was behind the attack on Estrella, which made Toro even more furious. He couldn't contain his anger and started smashing things nearby. Meanwhile, at the hotel, Lopez received a call from Romano, who said he had taken Estrella's eyes and demanded his money back. Realizing Romano had found them, Lopez hurried to get Diana and left her with a taxi driver while he went to help Toro, his brother. On the other hand, Gines was getting his men ready to fight Toro, who was preparing to take revenge on Romano. Shortly after, Toro reached Romano's place and fought one of his men in the kitchen. After a tough fight, Toro managed to defeat him. When Toro tried to take the elevator to the top floor, he encountered Gines, who tried to stop him. But there, Toro dodged Gines' attack and reached the top floor, where he faced more of Romano's men. Meanwhile, Lopez went to Isabella's apartment, who was Gines' girlfriend that was having an affair with Romano. There, Lopez threatened Isabella to call Gines and tell him that Romano had done something bad to her many times. On the other hand, Toro finally reached the iron gate leading to Romano's floor. He tried to open it using a hydraulic pump he had prepared. When Toro entered the room, he was shocked to see a statue made with part of Estrella's body. To his horror, Toro also found something related to Estrella on the statue. While Toro was distracted, Romano sneaked up behind him and stabbed him. Despite being seriously injured, Romano offered Toro to rejoin his gangster family, but Toro refused and instead used the opportunity to strangle Romano. When Toro saw his reflection in the mirror, he realized something. He didn't want to become like Romano, who didn't care about hurting or killing innocent people to fulfill his desires. So, Toro decided to forgive Romano and spare his life. But just then, Gines burst into the room and shot Romano until he died. Gines knew about Romano's affair with his girlfriend, and his betrayal deeply disappointed him because he had always seen Romano as his own father. Romano died just as the tarot card predicted by the hands of someone who considered him a father figure. Romano had thought Toro would be the one to kill him, but it was Gines who also saw him as a father. At that moment, Toro decided not to say anything about Romano's death and took Estrella's necklace before leaving the place. Outside, Toro was greeted with a warm hug from his niece, who looked very worried about him. Lopez also hugged Toro and apologized for not being a good brother and causing trouble for Toro. They said their goodbyes as he walked away, still bearing wounds from the fight. Soon after, Lopez kept his promise to his daughter and took Diana to meet her mother. From afar, he watched as Diana met her mother, who looked incredibly happy. Seeing her so joyful, Lopez decided to leave a bag of money outside the car and quietly left Diana with her mother. On the other hand, while still nursing serious injuries, Toro decided to visit Estrella in the hospital. He gently placed a necklace around her neck as she lay weak in bed. Thankfully, Estrella's life was saved, although she lost her sight due to Romano's cruelty. Despite his wounds still bleeding, Toro boarded a bus. He refused treatment, determined to return to prison and serve his sentence properly. He walked unsteadily, each step painful, with blood trailing behind him. His goal was to reunite with Estrella in 2 months. The film ends. The moral lesson from this film is just because you're a mafia boss doesn't mean you should steal people's body for decorations. Keep your decor game ethical, folks.